Now, I don't mean to be negative Nancy over here starting it off this way, but one of my biggest pet peeves is trying to say that I made a video. I tend to say I filmed something, or my DP and I have a film shoot. And it never fails, you got that one guy that comments, "Did you use real film?" I just know I don't want to use the term videoed. I videoed something. No doubt there's a distinct difference between the look of film and digital video. The first time I got to test that out was on little point and shoot cameras like these, and truth be told, I've never actually used a real film camera. I've just collected them. But that doesn't mean I'm not a connoisseur of the real film look. I'm pleased to announce that the team at Boris Effects has come up with a brand new plugin called Sapphire FilmBurn. The new meets the old in a new effect built to recreate the unpredictable beauty and nostalgic charm of those accidental overexposures we lovingly call film burns. We'll be using After Effects and Adobe Premiere today, but remember, they work the same across all the platforms where you can find Boris Effects. All I want you to do is go up to FX and Presets, and let's type in S_FilmBurn. You'll see it right here under Sapphire Stylize. Let's just drag it right onto the footage. Let's render so I can show you the defaults. Already out of the box, it looks beautiful. And check out some of the details here. There's flashes moving in different directions, film grain, even some details like dust and hairs. Typically in the past, what we would do is put a film burn footage layer on top of our footage and then change the transfer mode. The sad part is you could never control them, and you end up using tons of different clips. But with Sapphire FilmBurn, you get to build it from the top down. In the effects controls, look at these checkboxes. Right at the top, you see the most significant ones. There's 3 flashes at work right here that are all switched on. Going from largest to smallest, the other effects that I pointed out are at the bottom. There are scratches, hairs and stains, dust, and grain. So let's solo our flashes. You can see things moving, and different shapes are appearing and glowing at various degrees all the way across the footage. What's amazing about this is that it's not keyframed. This animation is happening automatically, and I'm going to show you those parameters, but first let us bring it back to the basics. The first place I recommend anybody start with when they're opening up a new Sapphire plugin is to load the preset browser. In Effect Controls, click Load Preset. You'll see all the presets that the worldwide team at Boris Effects has worked on. Some of these have some beautiful, unique looks, and you can tell motion graphics artists were behind it. This one was made by my friend Grant K, where he emphasized the noise parameter. Some of these convert your footage to very film-like looks, while others focus on light effects, leader markings, or other combinations. But like I said, let's go back to the basics with a full reset. Click Load. Now let's turn on all of the flashes. That's what's being used to make these looks. So let me walk you through each of the parameters. Go to Flash 1 and twirl it open. First, there's the size, then the stretch. We can also rotate it, and the center parameter will be useful when we talk motion. But let's get into the colors. Let's take a look at this outer color. Think of it in terms of RGB instead of pigment. Instead of white to black, you're going light to dark. Let's make this one yellow. And let's emphasize the redness of that inner color. And let's increase the midpoint. Before I show you softness, I want to show you the shape options. There's polygon, which will obviously give you sharp edges. And that noise parameter can really disrupt the look. Let's keep the noise low for now. Now back to the softness. This is where it looks more like a flash. Let me turn up the flicker a little bit and show you what that looks like. Let me bring this over here and increase the size. Now let's increase the frequency of the flicker. Not bad. Now we're getting somewhere. For motion, let's open up Flash 2. That's this blue one right here. Let's say I wanted it to loop a movement upward. Let's go from wave to linear and increase the movement amount to 2. We see it moving from its start point in the center off to the right, but we want our start position to be low, and we want the movement to go north. So let's look at the motion angle. Set it to 90 degrees. There we go. All right, so we've got our crazy movement. Let's touch up the shape by stretching, rotating. Let's stretch it some more, and let's add only a touch of softness. And that inner color, let's give that one a hot pink look. Let's increase the size and that softness amount. So we have flicker and linear movement. What are we gonna do with this one? Let's twirl open Flash 3 and give this one a square look. Instead of green, let's make it blue and light blue. Let's increase the size, bring that brightness down pretty low, and let's give it a wave animation. This style of animation has an ebb and flow. I'm gonna increase this to 0.5. There we go. Now let's switch the other ones back on, maybe increase the softness, and hit play. If you want, you can slide it way off to the side. Same thing with the other effects if you're going for something subtle. And right here you can see the combine or transfer mode that it's using. For that overexposed look, I'm gonna stick with add. The flashes are the soul of this plugin. And of course, you can keyframe every parameter for endless changes, all from one effect. No stock footage necessary. Obviously, there's a lot to play around with here to make it as bespoke as you desire, but let's give it all the film effects pizzazz we can. The leader category contains some of the biggest, most vintage looking elements of the whole plugin. This is your classic countdown, but a little bit more frenetic. Other leader styles include text. One of the first things I'm gonna do is reduce this down to 0.3, and let's try a couple of different blend modes to see what we like. Add is pretty bright. So what I'm gonna do is decrease the opacity by half. Now add looks more like a brighter overlay. And let's turn the persistence all the way down so that they last no longer than one frame. And I might add that all of these are keyframeable. So let's say at the beginning, you wanted it to be a countdown. You could keyframe that to change to the text, and then by the end, change to the sync markers. Let's increase the amount so that we can definitely see what's going on here. I'm gonna change the color to give it a gold look. For the sake of our brains, let's increase the persistence to 2, and the amount, we're gonna bring it down to 0.2 and hit play. Loving what I'm seeing here. Let's turn off everything and focus on the writing. By default, the writing has a certain amount of persistence to make it somewhat legible. There's some very familiar parameters over here, like glow, writing center, varying the position, the size, the brightness. Let's make a change to the combine. My favorite's gonna be add, as long as we turn the opacity down by about 1/4. This is pretty rapid. So as far as the writing style goes, let's check this out. There's the horizontal text, there's vertical text, and each of these stamps have a lot of fine details that really reflect the way they look on real film strips. But let's look at one of my favorites, which is wax pencil. Let's reduce the size by half. Now let's change the writing amount to, say, 0.2. And let's change the persistence all the way down to 1. The writing is gonna appear very intermittently. Very cool look. Okay, so let's look at another aspect, and that is what's happening on the edges. The sprockets are also one of my favorite aspects, but you gotta be careful because you don't want it to look too unrealistic. You have 3 different options. Sprockets Vertical A has 6, Sprockets Vertical B has 10, and one that I personally requested, which was a single vertical large sprocket. So let's decrease the size of this sprocket. Let's change some things, like the outside color edge. Let's give it kind of like a blue-ish kind of color right there. And then the edges center, we're going to make a little bit, let's see, like a bluish green, a little bit dark. Click OK. And this is where we can vary the wiggle of the position. We're gonna just bump it up like so. I do wanna move it off to the side, so I'm gonna tap this little edge center, and I'm gonna move it all the way over here, maybe even on the X-axis, slip it off to the side just a little bit. And let's play back to see what that looks like. Of course, any one of these things by themselves will look fine, but when we combine them together, it has a much more cohesive look. The next thing let's add is the scratches. The scratches are a very common thing found in the film. The scratches have an amount setting, the length, you can vary the width of the scratches, you can vary the gap between them, and you can change the color. All right, on to the next one. Let's add some hairs and stains. This one has 2 drop-down categories. Let's scrub through. Okay, so some of these hairs are absolutely gigantic and they're staying on the screen as if they're caught in the gate. But what if they were just on the celluloid film itself? They wouldn't be hanging on over multiple frames. They'd just be flicking by on each frame. So let's take a look at the hair's persistence amount. We're gonna bring this all the way down to 0.1. Now the hairs are only popping up for 1 frame, as if they're on each cell of the film strip. And how about those stains? You see one of them right here, but let's increase their density. And maybe the overall size up to 1. Okay, now we can see what we're talking about. If we were to use the transfer mode add, we would have to change the color. So let's take one of the colors and switch it to orange and the other color to a blue. Now those chemical stains are hard to miss. Now it looks pretty good to me. Let's twirl these up. Now let's add some dust. If we were to hit pause, this dust might look a little too graphical. And in the settings, we can change things like color. So let's pick something like this red and also something like this gold back here. This is now starting to fit a little bit better, but one of my favorite things to do in any visual effects is to look at the transfer mode, or the way Sapphire puts it, the combine mode. You can see our top favorites right here, and I'm going to add an overlay touch to it. It's slightly transparent and is still visible on the darks, looking pretty dusty. Grain is one of the top things you can add to give it a very distinct film-like look, and Sapphire delivers on grain in a really big way. Let's say I was exposing for the background, which is much lighter, and I only want the grain to be on their dark navy bogu. What's really neat is we can turn down the brights. I'm gonna go ahead and type in 0.5, and then in the darks, we're gonna turn this up to 2. So everything in the background has some grain, but all the darks in the foreground definitely have a lot more grain. Now, if we wanted to get crazy, we could turn everything on. I don't mind saying, shucks, that's a pretty cool look we came up with right there. Now let me show you some of my favorite presets made by me. We went above and beyond to match real film look and vintage photography. This one I called Silver Halide, and this one Sepia Sulfide. Each of them are made to match film look side by side. You can see the hairs on the screen are actually staying persistently across the whole thing, as if they were really caught in the gate or on the lens of the projector. And in the presets, you'll find plenty of other unique film effects and flashes, all with customizable parameters down to the finest details. And they were all inspired from real effects from real film footage, from the stamps to the stains to the hairs to the flashes, everything. Now go try it out. You can download a free trial at borisfx.com. My name is Zak Ciotti. Thank you for watching.